Them are breaking down, and they break down today, this day, this first working day of January, than other times of the year.
Yes, so much so that the first working Monday of January is often dubbed Divorce Day. I would say, though, I suspect that the marriages have broken down before today. Today is just the day they decide to, you know, get started with the process. You know, marriages don't end overnight, do they, usually? I'm no expert, but I would assume. Anyway.
Well, you'll find out. Throughout January, over 40,500 people in the country are expected to search online for divorce, as the song said. That's 25% higher than you would normally get for people searching for divorce.
Gosh, so we're asking this morning why so many of us are getting divorced, and we can discuss this a little bit further with divorce coach Sarah Davison. Good morning to you. Look, the figures go up 25% today, but does that prove, is that borne out in the figures generally? Are there more divorces than ever? My impression is that the 80s and 90s was a period of really horrendous acrimonious divorces, and now things are a little bit more... Well, the quickie divorces, I'm hoping, have made it a little bit easier. I don't know. Take it away. You know what I'm trying to say.
Well, yes. I mean, recently, actually, 2021, after COVID, we saw a 10% rise in divorce rates. Then in 2022, there was another increase as well by 20%. So we were at an all-time high then. This year, well, 2023 just gone, the stats are showing that we actually dropped 30%. So the actual divorce rate has come down back to where we were before. But does that represent more people being happy in marriage? I'm not quite sure. I think that a lot of the people that I see in my clinic are struggling with the cost of living crisis, and finances can be a real reason to stay together if you can't afford to separate two lifestyles. So even though it has come down, there are many other reasons why it might be that people aren't getting divorced right now.
So quite simply, people can't afford to go through with it.
Yes, I think obviously at the moment with the cost of living crisis, household bills are very expensive. Mortgages are incredibly expensive. So if you are trying to separate two lifestyles right now, that can be a real challenge, because that means two households, which also means if you have children, it might mean several bedrooms. So again, there is a huge cost implication for getting separated. Plus also a recent survey by Stowe Family Law showed that 50% of families right now are struggling and experiencing friction within their marriage because of the hike in mortgage rates and the pressure it's put on them. But 32% of them said they would never leave their partner just because they don't want to live alone. So actually a fear of being on your own and loneliness, again, is another factor right now too.
Sarah, factors. You're talking about factors. I'm going to guess sex is the biggest factor, or lack of it, lack of intimacy. I know it's not as simple as that, but when you boil things down, if people are being, frisky with each other or whatever, usually that can smooth over a lot of problems.
Yes, and you do find that a lot of people that do break up is because a lot of that intimacy has disappeared. I'm seeing so many people right now who are finding that the children have left home and they're now without those distractions of the kids, the school runs, you know, what they're used to having other people in the house. They're looking across the breakfast table at their partner thinking, gosh, I really don't have that much in common with you anymore. And that intimacy, that sort of sexy times you talk about there, that has gone. And obviously that does lead to frictions and people looking elsewhere. Usually, though, that comes down to communication. That comes down to lack of communication over a period of time. It can also be a build-up of resentment within a relationship. And that comes from what I call stacking, which is when you have problems in a relationship and maybe you don't want to face them. Maybe you just want to sweep them under the carpet and not really deal with them because maybe not for any malicious reason, but you just want to avoid any kind of confrontation. And if you do want to avoid confrontation, quite often just avoiding the argument to carry on seems like a good idea at the time. However, what that does is it enables those frustrations to build, and those expectations that are unvoiced, those problems that you're not facing, can become the straw that breaks the camel's back over a period of time. So I would always say that if there are problems like a lack of intimacy, or there are issues where you're not communicating, do try and face them head on. A lot of us will want to avoid the things that we feel uncomfortable talking about, whether that is intimacy or financial problems. We'll tend to avoid chatting about them with our partner, just because we don't want those arguments or to face some of those really tough decisions. So again, talking to your partner, communication will really help.
And also, prioritising your marriage. If you think it's probably the biggest decision you'll ever make, who you decide to marry, and then because of the things like mortgages or children or your job, whatever it is, you don't prioritise that relationship, and suddenly you find yourself, as you described, sort of fallen out of love. So I think on divorce day, I follow something called Stronger Marriages on Instagram. They're always putting out top tips, and they're saying you wouldn't leave anything else in your life unattended in the way that people neglect their marriages. And their top 10, and I thought today's a good day to list them. Top 10 tips. Spend time together often. Sounds simple, but people forget. Communicate obsessively. Be intimate often. Be honest always. Forgive mistakes fast. Root for your spouse to win. Lift each other up. Hold hands. Continue to date. Make your marriage a priority. I always thought that was some nice advice.
Sarah, thank you very much indeed. Very, very good talking to you. You've raised a lot of things to a lot of people there, and they'll get in touch and let us know how they feel today. Sarah Davidson there, who is a divorce coach. Thank you very much indeed. Romance. Romance is hard to beat. When romance goes, you're in trouble. Keep the romance going.
Absolutely.
Are you in love with the weather? Let's find out.